Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. In fact, Huang Yu knew the matter of regaining his freedom would not be a problem since the mighty figure with 1,000 realms whirling avatar had spoken. However, she just wanted confirmation. If there was anyone who dared to stand up and object during such an occasion, that person must be crazy, stupid, or both. At this moment, Li Yunjing said in a clear voice, "Since Grandmaster has said so, I'll write a decree to release these people from the Sky Research Court." Huang Yu looked at the youth in front with a puzzled expression and asked, "Who are you?" The people from the Sky Research Court had been imprisoned underground for 100 years. They had been imprisoned underground for 100 years. They had no idea what was going on in the outside universe during that time. How could they know anything about the little emperor? All they knew was the young man in front of them was handsome, elegant, and had an extraordinary bearing and aura. Now that they heard the young man referring to the old man as Grandmaster again, how could they not be curious? Lu Zhou said with a frown, "Are you not going to greet the Emperor of Great Tang?" After the lunatics from the Sky Research Court found out about the young man's identity and heard Lu Zhou's words, they put up a show of greeting him. However, Li Yunjing waved his hand and said, "No, you can dispense with the formalities." Just to be safe, the 4 Grand Dukes had also followed suit and greeted Li Yunjing as well. When they heard Li Yunjing dismissing them, they straightened their backs. However, a displeased expression appeared on Li Yunjing's face as he said, "Who allowed you to stand?" The 4 Grand Dukes looked at Li Yunjing in shock. If it were before, they would not have cared about him. However, the circumstances now were different. They could only kneel and said in unison, "Your subject pays respects to your majesty." Then, Li Yunjing looked at the 4 Grand Dukes and asked, "I want to write a decree to free these people from the Sky Research Court. Do you have any objections?" "Your Majesty, this subject will obey your decree." Wang Yun, the Grand Duke of Shen, was the first to speak. The other 3 said in unison, "Your subject obeys." With the support from the 4 Grand Duke, it was only a matter of time before Li Yunjing regained his power. Huang Yu was stunned. The people from the Sky Research Court looked at Li Yunjing with a complicated expression. Then, all of a sudden, all of them straightened their backs. Those whose bodies were bent earlier stood straight. Those with heads unnaturally tilted to the side straightened their heads. Those who were only standing in the corner passively earlier also walked over at this moment. All in all, there were more than 30 people. There were a lot of prisoners. However, the number was small compared to their original number of more than 100. Over the past 100 years, nearly 70 of them had died of unnatural causes. At this moment, those from the Sky Research Court gathered and bowed at Lu Zhou and Li Yunjing. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace. Thank you, Senior, for granting us our freedom." They sounded coherent, and their voices were clear, completely different from how they were before. Those who were unaware wore expressions of confusion on their faces while those in the know only sighed. At this moment, Sikong Baichen cupped his fists together at the people from the Sky Research Court and said, "Congratulations." Huang Yu said, "Thank you." Then, Huang Yu turned to look at Lu Zhou and said solemnly, "Senior, please tell us what you need us to do." They were geniuses who had lived a long life after all. How could they not know there was no such thing as free lunch in this universe? Lu Zhou clasped his hands on his back and said, "My request is very simple. First, repair this sword. Second, find Luo Xian. Other than that, I have no other request." Huang Yu frowned and said, "Just these 2 requests?" "That's right," Lu Zhou said. "That won't do. Senior, please mention a few more conditions. Weapons, talismans, drawing formations, capturing fierce beasts, anything is fine." Huang Yu took the lead to say. The Sky Research Court's Hezhong also echoed similar sentiments. "That's right, Senior. Don't you think that's insulting? Although our lives might be cheap, these 2 requests definitely aren't enough." This scene really confused the people in front of the Sacred Rites Hall. A genius was indeed a genius. Even their brains were different from that of a normal person. Lu Zhou stroked his beard and said, I only have these two requests. Since I've granted you freedom, why would I restrict you? You can leave the Sky Martial Court now, and you're free to fly high in the sky. You can do as you please. This time, it was the geniuses from the Sky Research Court who were dumbfounded. Meanwhile, the 4 Grand Dukes and the elders of the Sky Martial Court really could not understand Lu Zhou's thoughts. Everyone knew these people from the Sky Research Court were like treasures. If only these geniuses listened to them, they would definitely take them for their own use. With these geniuses, they would be able to defeat thousands of soldiers and horses. Talismans, runes, seals, weapons, formations, Tao inscriptions, subduing beasts, cultivation methods from the Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism school of thinking, innovative creations, secret techniques, the Sky Shuttle, and many more things. Giving up on these people was no different from giving up on these treasures. Huang Yu really could not wrap his head around this. He turned around and looked at the gates of the Sky Martial Court, the foot of the mountain, and the sky. It would be a lie to say he did not want to leave. However, now that he was finally able to leave, he found it hard to believe. Once he stepped out of this mountain, he would be free. At this moment, Lu Zhou suddenly said, however, before all of you leave, I have a few words of advice. Please speak, senior. There's no one in this universe who knows the universe better than all of you. Even if there were no Sky Martial Court, there would still be the Earth Martial Court or the Martial Court. Even if there were no Red Lotus Domain, there would still be the Black Lotus Domain. Even if there were no Black Lotus Domain, there would still be the Blue Lotus Domain. Lu Zhou knew he had to teach this group of people a lesson. He raised his wizened hand and an exquisite golden lotus appeared on his palm under the sunlight. Lu Zhou pushed his hand out, and the flower hovered in the air. Under the sunlight, the lotus bloomed slowly. Soon enough, golden karmic fire shrouded the lotus, making the color even more vivid. Then, Lu Zhou used the heavenly writing's extraordinary power and turned the golden lotus into a blue lotus. At this moment, the lotus was in full bloom. Lu Zhou did not stop and used a disguise card and turned the blue lotus into a red lotus. Huang Yu exclaimed in shock, this. How is this possible? The people from the Sky Martial Court were confused as well, they did not know what was going on. Even the top geniuses who often studied things beyond the heavens did not understand this, how could they have any hope of understanding this? They could only watch with a dumbfounded expression on their faces. Lu Zhou looked at the red lotus as it began to change. The red lotus began to darken, looking like fresh blood, before it turned purple. The purple lotus only appeared for an instant before it turned into a black lotus. At this moment, everyone's attention was focused on the black lotus. The black lotus shone dazzlingly under the sunlight as it continued to spin. At this moment, as though the edges of the petals were being dyed by the sunlight, it suddenly turned into a white lotus. Then, in just a blink of an eye, the white lotus turned into a green lotus. Lu Zhou did not have much time, he had only 10 seconds left. Seeing that the green lotus was about to disappear, he used his extraordinary power gain and turned the green lotus blue. The blue lotus shone even brighter than before as it shot up into the sky. Then, Lu Zhou used his healing technique. In the sky, the blue lotus rapidly increased in size, covering more than 30 people from the Sky Research Court. In just a moment, their vitality seemed to return to them. Then, all sorts of injuries and scars from whip marks, knife marks, sword marks, hand marks to bruises were healed in just a breath. Lu Zhou was rather satisfied when he saw the expressions on the faces of those 30 people. He did not care what the others thought. Lu Zhou had ended the demonstration with a blue lotus and healed them with it to prove to them that the lotuses were real and not some illusory technique. The last disguise card had played its role. The cost was indeed huge, but it was worth it. After all, this demonstration was for the talented people, not because he wanted to show off. Lu Zhou looked at the expressions on their faces again. Something was not right. He wondered if he had shown a little too many colors that he collectively caused all of their minds to go blank. The existence of the Black Lotus Domain, the Red Lotus Domain, and the Golden Lotus Domain had already been confirmed. The blue lotus was a product of the heavenly writing's extraordinary power. The other colors were created using the disguise card. Zhou had never seen them before. If he had overdone his display and caused them to obsess over the lotus's colors, would that not be a mistake? If the Thousand Realms whirling avatar had shocked them, the shock when they saw the display of colors of the lotuses was beyond description. The Sky Research Court was established over 1,000 years ago, and the members had spent all their time studying and researching. Their understanding of the universe was not inferior to anyone else. They were privy to many secrets that were unknown to the cultivation universe, such as the Golden Lotus Domain and the Black Lotus Domain, and the ferocious beasts hidden in the depths of the forest and the endless ocean. However, at this moment, it felt like their knowledge had been refreshed. The geniuses had all kinds of questions in their minds. They wondered if the Sky Martial Court had advanced so much during the time they were imprisoned. Based on their research, did the Sky Martial Court somehow produce some incomprehensible results? It was understandable that there were new discoveries during the 100 years they were imprisoned. Too many things could happen in 100 years. Huang Yu was the first to snap out of the stupor. He rubbed her eyes, causing them to water. However, when he looked up again, the blue lotus in the sky had already faded away. It was a real blue lotus. After a long time, Zhou finally said, "An illusion?" However, how could it be an illusion? Nothing was more real than this. The wound on his body had been healed. No, this could not be considered as refreshing their knowledge. This was overturning everything they had ever known. The Sky Research Court had studied this matter hundreds of years ago and paid a huge price because of the research. Why was it that only people who were born in the Red Lotus domain could only cultivate red lotuses, and why did people who were born in the Golden Lotus domain could only cultivate golden lotuses? Why was it impossible for those who were born in the Golden Lotus domain to cultivate red lotuses? This display truly overturned everything they had ever known. How could they not be in a stupor? Their eyes were dazzled and their minds were buzzing from the various colors. How could a person master so many cultivation methods with so many different colors? There were too many questions running across the minds of the geniuses from the Sky Research Court. Even the first-rate geniuses were at a loss. There was no need to mention the others. This included Zhou's disciples who thought they understood their master the most. The 4 Grand Dukes remained kneeling as though they were frozen. The display was too unbelievable. Even after the display had ended after a long time, the crowd still wanted more. It was too surreal. At this moment, Zhou said, "Whether it's blue lotus or a green lotus, no one knows the meaning of these colors better than all of you. Think about it. When you leave this place, perhaps a few hundred years later, what if a powerful black lotus cultivator appears in front of you? What would all of you think at that time?" Geniuses were stubborn. They had a one-track mind when pursuing knowledge. That was right. In order to survive and to pursue a peaceful life, all they needed to do was to leave this place. However, what about the future? A Black Lotus cultivator had already appeared, and the Black Lotus Thousand Realms whirling avatar in the Sky Will Rift Valley was still a hot topic during dinner in various relay stations. As the saying went, even before an avalanche, there's not a single snowflake that's innocent. You are all talented people from the Sky Research Court. You yearn for freedom, and it was not easy for you to obtain freedom. Therefore, I won't restrict you. You can all freely leave. From now on, the Sky Research Court no longer has anything to do with all of you. Your names will also be erased from the Sky Martial Court and the Royal Court, Zhou said as he stroked his beard and looked at the geniuses. At this moment, the geniuses looked like they were deep in their thoughts. This meant that they were hesitating and were carefully making a decision. That's right. Think harder. Zhou thought to himself before he said, "The Red Lotus domain has undergone many trials and tribulations to arrive at where it is today. However, there will be more disasters in the future. If it's up to me, I, naturally, wish that all of you won't leave. After all, every single one of you is Great Tang's biggest talent and the foundation of the Sky Martial Court. If all of you leave, it will be a great loss to Great Tang and the Red Lotus domain. However, I've always kept my words. Therefore, I will not force you to stay if you intend to leave. Then, Zhou made an inviting gesture and said, please. The geniuses were stunned. At this moment, how could the others not understand Zhou's intention? Indeed, the older one was, the wiser one would be. Truly amazing. If he wanted to keep the talented people, he had to make them stay on their own accord. Was it not because of Yu Qinshu using the wrong method to deal with these people that Sky Martial Court was reduced to this state? However, Huang Yu said regretfully, Senior Lu, you truly know our hearts. To be honest, people like us only know how to do these small things. We know nothing about governing a country, serving the people, or healing the people. Moreover, we're not so selfless that we would sacrifice ourselves to save the universe. In fact, we only want to do what we like, we want to continue doing what we did in the past. Unfortunately, the current Sky Martial Court. When Huang Yu finished speaking, he shook his head. The other geniuses followed suit and shook their heads as well. He Zhong, who was standing at the back, laughed maniacally before he said, the Sky Martial Court is too smelly. It's no longer fragrant. It's really too smelly. That's right. Where's that old fart, Yu Qinshu? This place is as smelly as him. Do you guys smell it? It smells like shit. No, it's worse than that. It's smelly and sour. It smells like someone who hasn't taken a bath in 800 years. He Zhong's outburst was to be expected. He was likely heartbroken over the Sky Martial Court's treatment of them. Moreover, with Yu Qinshu's way of doing things, it would take more than a few words to change his mind. Zhou, who had expected this, said, I've killed Yu Qinshu with my own hands. Zhou had also expected this, so he said, I've killed Yu Qinshu with my own hands. The geniuses were stunned by these words. All of them turned to look at Zhou one after another. Yu Qinshu is dead? At this moment, Xia Chengxiu said in a clear voice, Yu Qinshu was too audacious, he tried to snatch a birth chart heart from Senior Lu's hands. However, he was unaware that Senior Lu had long formed a 1,000 realms whirling avatar. This matter is not a secret. The true Kunlun sect and the Void sect were present at that time. If you don't believe this, you can ask around. Indeed. This was the Sky Martial Court. If he was still alive, how could he not be here at this moment? The geniuses were further shocked. This? Huang Yu was speechless. Zhou asked, I personally killed Yu Qinshu. Do you doubt my words? No, it's not that. It's not a surprise at all that someone who has formed a 1,000 realms whirling avatar to kill someone who only has 100 tribulations insight avatar. It's just that I'm a little surprised, Huang Yu said, that old thing had taken many treasures from us. The puppet secret technique, the confinement seal, the life siphoning flag, and many other weapons. Apart from that, there were also the method to gather energy for the god-killing formation and the blueprint left behind by the Sky Research Court. A while ago, that old fox even upgraded his confinement seal to the flood grade. He thought he would be invincible, but he probably didn't expect. He trailed off and sighed. A man with a beggar-like appearance, who was standing behind Huang Yu, clicked his tongue and said, that old fart deserves it. It's been 100 years. Who doesn't know what kind of person he was? He's a liar. A con artist. The geniuses cheered. Good riddance. Someone said before spitting on the ground. It was clear that the people from the Sky Research Court hated Yu Qinshu to the bones. At this moment, it finally dawned on Zhou why Yu Qinshu was so insistent on dying at that time. Zhou suddenly understood why Yu Qinshu wanted to die. Yu Qinshu and this group of people were like oil and water. How could Yu Qinshu, who had always been high and mighty, be willing to let these people he had once trampled under his feet see him defeated and in despair? At this moment, Xia Chengxiu seized the opportunity and said, Yu Qinshu is dead. The Sky Martial Court can be demolished and rebuilt, or we can just change its name and make sure that it becomes a better place. I think it's a pity that all of you are leaving. You really need to consider this carefully. Once you step out, you won't be able to return anymore. You're all geniuses, so I'm sure you can tell how sincere Senior Lu is. I believe once the Sky Marshal Court is rebuilt, Senior Lu will definitely satisfy all your needs.